One topic, two guests, two perspectives. One show that gets to the point with the biggest names in business, media, entertainment, and technology. Welcome to The Point with me, Jon Steinberg. The Me Too movement has sparked a nationwide conversation about gender in businesses and industries across the board, from politics to entertainment to tech and beyond. On this episode of The Point, we look at the world of sports and sports media, where allegations of harassment and pay disparity have been making headlines. I sat down with two highly successful women who rose to the top of their game in mainstream sports. Erika Nardini, CEO of Barstool Media, and Jenna Wolfe, broadcaster at Fox Sports. Jenna Wolfe has covered sports for nearly 20 years. She also spent nearly 8 years on NBC's Today Show team, where she served as the show's first fitness and lifestyle correspondent. She is currently a personal trainer and one of the hosts of First Things First on FS1, bringing viewers the best stories on all things sports. Erika Nardini is the CEO of Barstool Sports, a digital media company valued at $100 million. Barstool is sometimes controversial, featuring, simply put, stuff guys talk about at a bar. Roughly 8 million so-called stoolies check it out every day. After a fairly traditional career in media, Nardini beat out 74 other candidates for the CEO role at Barstool. 74 male candidates.
Finally, the day has come to announce our new CEO, my boss, big old balls, Erika Nardini.
Erika Nardini, CEO Barstool.
She became the first female employee at Barstool. Each of these women has held her own in a male-dominated industry, but with different outlooks and different strategies.
Learn how to say no without saying no. And what I mean by that is learn how to work a locker room and get what you need without putting yourself in any kind of precarious position, but also without standing on any kind of soapbox or self-righteousing yourself, if you will, right out of there.
I helped create Saturdays for the Boys. Like, I had my foot on the gas on Saturdays for the Boys, because Saturdays for the Boys is about guys being guys, and it's not about an agenda.
Both of our guests have spent a fair amount of time being the only woman in the room, and each one has a different take on what it's like. Here's how they explained it to me. What's it like being a woman in sports in the context of the Me Too movement and everything that we're seeing going on in the world today?
I wish that I was asked that question when I did sports the first time around. I don't think you need to stretch your imagination too wide to know that even today, especially, for every, 8 guys in a locker room, there's going to be 1 or 2 women.
Yeah.
Before, it was every 15 guys, there was, 1 woman. Did I have my share of men that would ask me out, athletes, all the time?
Yes.
But it was nothing that was alarming to me. It was nothing eye-opening to me. It was just a thing. It was just a part of the culture of what it was, whether they were being jovial and joking around and they were saying this and comments.
Yeah.
The problem that I ran into was when it started affecting my job. Because I could say no till I'm blue in the face. But you don't say, no, that's incredibly inappropriate.
Right.
Young women that would come up to me, I'm going to be very honest with you, young women would say, what's the most important thing, I need to know before I head into locker rooms and start? And I said this to them, and it may come across wrong, but this was the true advice that I gave. I said, you have to learn how to say no to athletes without saying no. Learn how to say no without saying no. And what I mean by that is learn how to work a locker room and get what you need without putting yourself in any kind of precarious position, but also without standing on any kind of soapbox or self-righteousing yourself, if you will, right out of there. So at the problem I ran into, say at the end of the Jets season or whatever, male reporters will go around and they'll say, listen, I want to talk to you about your contract in the off season. Can I get your number just to give you a call? How can I get in touch with you? I couldn't do that. I couldn't walk up to all these guys and say, hey, can I get your number just to call you in the off season? And maybe I could. I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel like the environment was there where I could go ahead and do that. And that's where I was at a disadvantage. And the season would end, and I would have to ask some of my male reporters, hey, is there any way I can get that number? I didn't feel comfortable asking. And I'm not in the locker rooms today, so I don't know if that bridge has been gapped at all, but that's where I found the disadvantage for me as far as my approach to these guys.
Broad question. What is it like being a woman in the sports industry?
I think one of the hard things about being a woman in a traditionally man's position is it just comes with a whole lot of other bullshit that you don't answer otherwise. And one of those things is the judgment of what a woman should be doing and whether that thing is good enough and right enough. I get asked questions about my friendships or lack thereof. I get asked questions about being a woman instead of getting asked questions about how I'm growing this company. And I'm cool with that. I'm like, I get what I signed up for. I get what I'm going to have to answer to. I'm very interested in sports media. I think sports media is incredibly ripe for disruption. And we're really focused on our team, to the team sport analogy. So, I don't think there's enough women. I don't think there are many women in business. You see mostly women doing reporting or playing, bit parts on camera, and increasingly big parts on camera, which is awesome. But you don't see a lot of women in executive ranks. You don't see a lot of women in production. So I think there's huge opportunity for that.
You beat out 74 people to become CEO of Barstool Sports, which you define as your dream job. And were all the other candidates male, is that right?
They were.
So there were 75 candidates, 74 were male, you were the only woman. How did you win the job, period, end of sentence, regardless of gender?
It was only one gender because I was the right person for the job. And I was the right person for the job because I understood I had been places that Barstool wanted to go, and I had a great understanding of the brand and a great affection for where they had come from.
Coming up, our guests fell in love with sports in two very different ways, and they tell me how that has shaped their careers. Welcome back. Broadcaster Jenna Wolfe and Barstool Sports CEO Erika Nardini are two highly successful women in the world of mainstream sports. One was passionate about sports from a young age, the other came to it later in life. Both have strong opinions on how athletics and teamwork shape a woman's career. When did your love of sports begin?
When I was very young, from the jump.
And what caused it?
I grew up where there was nothing else to do.
Where'd you grow up?
Vermont and New Hampshire.
When did your love of sports begin?
The year before I graduated college, I wanted to be a news reporter. I was interning at the news station in Binghamton, New York. I walked in. I was ready to apply. They had no news reporter openings. They said, we have a sports reporter opening. You can have it if you want it. I did that for 12 years. Fell in love with it.
What sports did you play growing up, and what sports do you like to play now?
I skied. I ran, I played field hockey, and I did track and field. And now I don't work out as much as I should, but I like tennis. I still love lacrosse. I still run.
What sport do you like to watch?
I love football.
Just football?
I love football, yeah.
What sports do you like to watch?
Oh, huge NFL fan. Huge. It could be any game, any team, any city, playoff or otherwise. Preseason, I'll watch any NFL game.
There's no better sport, in my opinion.
Favorite team in any sport?
The Patriots.
Favorite team in any sport?
As a sportscaster, I covered a number of teams in a number of cities. I started following players. I never really hung true to a team. I'm not from the United States, so I don't have a hometown. So I just love a great game, and it's most likely going to be an NFL, NFL team.
So then the next one is favorite athlete.
Love Brett Favre. I mean, I've always been a Brett Favre fan. I love who he is. I love the way he plays. I love the way he just owned every single person around him when he got out onto the field. I was a huge fan of watching Brett Favre play.
Favorite athlete in any sport?
I have a lot of favorite athletes. I would say Julian Edelman would be my favorite athlete, and the reason is I think he's super scrappy. Like, he's a mud player. He's a wide receiver. He's a small guy. He puts himself in the middle of the field in the play. Like, he really puts himself out there. He's exceptionally fast. So he would be my favorite player.
I would have thought you would have said Tom Brady.
I know, that's so, yeah, I love Tom Brady.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, that's like, I mean, it's like going to a steak restaurant and ordering the filet mignon. Like, I mean, you still.
But I do that too.
Right, but I mean, that's Tom Brady is like the filet mignon of a steakhouse,
he
right?
Is, he is.
Okay. But you gave me like a skirt steak, right? Or a flank steak.
Edelman's a real deal. I mean, it's
no, I love skirt steak. I'm saying like you gave me like a different cut of meat.
Yeah,
right?
I hear you. Yeah, we're still in the steakhouse.
We're still in the steak.
We're still in the Patriots
still
steakhouse.
Great steakhouse,
yep.
Right? Okay. In a recent Ernst & Young survey, 96% of female CEOs said they participated in sports when they were younger. What do you believe the connection is?
There is something to competing with people around you and working together towards one goal, whether it's a game or a project or money or anything. And I think that when you are a part of that, that stays within you and that is buried within you. And I think that comes out as you grow up and you grow into the person you are. So any CEO needs that team to be on board if they are going to be successful, the same way they did when they were playing volleyball or football or anything else along the way, as a team concept.
I completely agree with you.
There's a huge connection, I think, between people who thrive in intense, competitive environments and who played sports as kids. I learned personally all of my lessons in leadership from sports. I picked up lacrosse when I was in college. I didn't know how to play. I was a goalie. I had to get up at 3 in the morning every morning to learn how to play because that was the only time I could get fieldhouse time. But it taught me so much about perseverance, about teamwork, about camaraderie, about winning, about losing, about getting better, like living to the next play and being better on the next play, and stamina.
I think sports teaches you how to be competitive, it teaches you how to win, it teaches you how to lose, and it teaches you how to play with the strong and the weak people around you. And when you grow up and you're the CEO of a company, those are the only skill sets you really need to be successful, right? How do you win? How do you lose? How do you work with the people around you? Not just the good ones, but the ones that are struggling a little bit. How do we all come together for one common goal?
Teamwork and being in a locker room and being part of something and trying to win as an entity is something that team sports teaches you. It teaches you how to compete not only against a competitor but against your peers. It teaches you empathy. It teaches you how to work alongside someone else to get to achieve a shared goal. So I'm a big believer in that.
Coming up, Barstool CEO Erika Nardini and sports broadcaster Jenna Wolfe tell me about the hardest parts of their jobs. Welcome back. I asked Barstool CEO Erika Nardini and sports broadcaster Jenna Wolfe to tell me about the hardest parts of their jobs. For one, the challenge is being an outsider. For the other, the challenge is that people think she fits in a little too well. What's the hardest part about being a sports reporter or broadcaster? What's the hardest part of that job?
So because I never played a professional sport, or let's say this, before I never played any of the sports that I cover now on a very big national stage, your football, professional basketball, baseball, whatever it is, I come at it from a little bit more of a fan perspective, because now I'm out there and I'm both learning and talking about it at the same time. And I work with Chris Carter now, who Hall of Fame receiver, he played for the Vikings for many years, knows it inside and out. I work with a guy, Nick Wright, who's a savant. I mean, if I tell you lives, eats, breathes basketball, knows these things from the time he was just walking. I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage. I came into it a little bit later. So I'm sort of learning as I go, which is both a good and a bad thing.
Football is the sport that you're most passionate about, you mentioned. It's a sport where there is no women's league, where I can't think of any of the head coaches that are female. I'm sure you could tell me otherwise. Is that still very much a boys' club? Is that hard for you to be as much a part of that sport as you'd like to be?
It's only hard for me from the X's and O's standpoint because I never played. And there are women who really study the sport and who know it, but it's difficult for me to understand. There's a route tree, and there's 400 routes that sprout off of it, and different plays and different defensive, zones versus man and different sets, and I don't recognize all of that. I watch it from a fan's perspective, and I love it from a fan's perspective.
You said that you lost some friends over the decision to take the job. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
And why? I mean, that blows my mind.
It does and it doesn't blow your mind. And Barstool is very controversial. When you look at my peer set, we are not the target audience of Barstool Sports. There are women and men who I'm friends with who love Barstool. My mother loves Barstool Sports. It's like right in the storyline. There are other people who weren't raised the way I was or aren't from the Northeast or don't have the same sense of humor, and I think it's mostly about the same sense of humor, who thought that this was just a wrong move. And one of the things that I'm so proud to have this job. I feel fortunate to work at this company. I am very proud of what we've done here. I knew the minute that I came across Barstool Sports that I wanted this job so badly. And I get what I'm going to have to answer to, but I also am really proud of what we've built, and I wish I had more of an opportunity to talk about that.
When you think about the platforms, where do you want to grow and invest, and where do you feel like you don't want to grow and invest?
I've had an incredible year. We have had an incredible year of success and failure on other people's platforms. Traditional media platforms, audio platforms, radio most specifically, and social platforms. The company I'm going to bet on is myself.
Okay.
And I'm betting on Barstool. I will dig and build way deeper into Barstool.
So one of the big Barstool slogans is Saturday is for the boys, right? But isn't Sunday, because Sunday's when football airs, right? What is Saturday? But for me, it's funny, I was telling everyone when I was going to interview you, I'm like, Saturdays for me is like for napping.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Saturdays are for Saturdays for the boys. John Feidelberg, who's one of our super talented guys, Boston guy, at a bar in Newport, heard a guy say, Fridays are for men, Saturdays are for the boys. He tweeted it, and it became electric, viral almost instantly. He woke up the next morning, he had thousands and thousands of likes and retweets. And we turned it into an anthem, a lifestyle brand, a merchandise brand, an experiential brand, because what it stands for is guys being guys.
Right.
And one of the funny things, I helped create Saturdays for the boys. Like, I had my foot on the gas on Saturdays for the boys, because Saturdays for the boys is about guys being guys, and it's not about an agenda, it's not about a mission, it's about being, with your buddies, doing what you do. It could be napping, it could be hanging with your other guys, it could be about football, it could be really about anything and anything that, we did it cliff jumping, we did it at the horse tracks, like it's whatever guys are doing. And, I think one of the things about Barstool is that it doesn't have an agenda. Its content doesn't have an agenda. And Barstool is about comedy. It's about what's funny. It's about Saturday afternoon. What do you want to be doing? Do you want to be drinking beers? Do you want to be taking a nap? Do you want to be playing flag football? And I like that. I like that there is a brand and that I'm part of that doesn't have an agenda and is about having fun and being yourself.
Coming up, Jenna and Erika tell us what it's like to be a trailblazer in your field. Welcome back. As part of our conversation on women in sports, I asked Fox Sports' Jenna Wolfe and Barstool's Erika Nardini what it was like to be a trailblazer and what still needs to be done. You were the first woman to be hired at Barstool, is that accurate?
There was one woman before me, which was Jenna Marbles, who went on to a YouTube fabulously successful career.
And then your chief revenue officer is also female, correct? Do you feel like the doors are just gonna blow open now at the company?
So when I joined Barstool, there were no women working at Barstool, and we had about 17 employees. We are over 100 employees. Five of our last 6 hires have been women. We've hired a phenomenal woman named Deirdre Lester, who will be our CRO. Came out of the sports industry. We hired Julie Stewart-Banks from ESPN. We hired Liz Gonzalez, who's worked for the Jets and MSG and Comcast. We have 2 phenomenal women who started as interns and who now are the stars of an incredibly popular show called Chicks in the Office.
Yeah, I watched that.
It's a great show.
Yeah, they sit like at the table.
They sit at the merch table.
I was gonna say, do they sell stuff during that show?
No, they should. It would be great. But it's a great example of here are 2 phenomenally talented people.
Yeah.
They happen to be women. What they happen to like to talk about is celebrity and pop culture. 5 years ago, you wouldn't have thought that would have come from Barstool Sports. That's exactly what's coming from Barstool Sports. They're irreverent, they're unfiltered, they're super funny, they're raw. They call it like it is.
As a sports reporter who was in locker rooms and in clubhouses and was trying to get interviews from players, I spent 12 years doing sports as the second wave of women coming in. There was a first wave who blazed a trail. Then there was a second wave, and I think I was sort of in the middle or towards the end of that pack of the second wave, where when I went to locker rooms, they would still say, excuse me, there's a woman coming into the locker room. We want to make sure everyone knows that. You could never say that today. Back then, they would announce it. Back then, they would whisper in players' ears, are you okay if I have a woman come in? And I would see that. Back then, men would go in first and would get a head start on interviewing, and I would have to wait outside until it was okay for me to go in. I'm not that old, so you can imagine it was
Right.
not that long ago.
No, and I'm not that old either. And I remember reading stories about this. Like I remember women going into the locker room to record the men. Like there was all sorts of discussion and debate and all that stuff
Sure.
kind of going on about that. What Jenna commented on was it was particularly hard to cover football because she never had the opportunity to play football.
Sure.
So there's only a certain closeness.
Yeah,
that
you're
you can
never
get
gonna know it
never
as
gonna-
well as-
you know, you're never going to have executed the play,
Yeah.
right? Whereas
Yep.
a lot of sports, she has actually done
Yeah.
the play. How do you think you solve that?
You know, I don't think you have to, I think you have to understand a sport intimately and you have to have a vision and a sense of strategy. And football's a strategy sport, in my opinion. So, you know, former players sometimes make great coaches. I think like most areas where you don't find a lot of women today in high-ranking positions, it's just because the funnel is broken.
Is it a boys club? I mean, yeah, it's generally made up mostly of men, but I think women are doing a good job of weaving themselves into the conversation and being able to talk about it having not played the sport. Do I want my kids to play sports? More than anything. I'm a certified personal trainer. Fitness is as important to me
Yes.
as the oxygen that I breathe. I want my kids out there running around. I have 2 little girls. I pray that they are athletic. I want them to understand the concept of a team sport
Yes.
and playing with a team. That camaraderie, you will not get that anywhere else in life if you don't get that from a team sport.
So what's the outlook for women in sports? It's not perfect, but there's progress. The NFL has held workshops for women who have played semi-professional football to possibly enter the NFL as scouts, coaches, and officials. The gender gap in competition prize money is closing for top-level sports, with 83% of sports now rewarding men and women equally. But the point is, sports is more than just entertainment. It's big business. And if major leagues want to attract female fans and their money, it's time to clear the way for women.